I'm a big believer in the Me Too movement and that empowerment that it has given so many women.
Hello, this is Malnourish. Welcome to Malnourish TV. My name is Malnourish. I'm your host for Inside a Great Mind. And today, guess what? We are in Oakland, California with the CEO of Kuli Food. And her name is Lisa Curtis. Lisa, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me in the office here. I'm just enjoying everything you guys have going on and
thanks for
can't wait to
me.
learn more.
Yes, it is
So tell us, who is Lisa Curtis?
Yeah, so I am a California girl, born and raised here, and first started working with this plant that my company sells, moringa, about 9 years ago when I was in the Peace Corps in Niger, West Africa.
So you were in the Peace Corps in West Africa?
Yes, I was.
How long were you there for?
So, I was supposed to be there for 2.5 years, and it was kind of a crazy experience in that I was there for about 7 months, and then there was a terrorist attack, and we all got evacuated.
Wow.
So I was forced to come back to the U.S. early. And it was actually really sad and really disappointing to have to leave. And I wanted some way of continuing some of what I had started in Peace Corps. So that's really why I started Kuli.
Wow, that's interesting. So when you say that's where you start Kuli, what do you see the need to start that business of moringa? I mean, can you share that with us?
Yeah, so I think when I was in Peace Corps and I was a vegetarian and was just like eating millet and rice and
I love rice too.
Yeah,
I can eat rice every day.
It was good, but you can't eat it every day, right? You gotta have other nutrients.
I'm kind of addicted to it too.
Yeah, you need sauces or other things, and just found like I didn't have a lot of energy and was feeling full but not nourished, which I think is what if you look at a lot of the stats of a lot of people in the developing world, they're filling their stomachs, but they're not necessarily nourishing their bodies.
Yes, I agree.
And when I spoke with some of the women that I worked with in the Village Health Center, they said, oh, well, you should try this plant, moringa. So they pulled these leaves off a tree, mixed it with a popular West African snack, which is the peanut balls called Kuli.
Okay.
And they handed it to me, and I started eating it, and they were like, eat it every day, and I ate every day, and after a week or so, I was like, oh, I feel a lot more energized. Like, what is this? And I did some research, and I was like, wow, this plant is incredibly nutritious. It's a tree, and it's these leaves. You can harvest it 3 to 4 times a year. It grows like a weed, and so it just struck me like, why aren't more people in my village eating it? And when I did some research, I found that they largely weren't eating it because they didn't see a lot of value in it. They thought it was a poor person's crop. They just didn't think it was something worth cultivating. And so they weren't growing a lot of it. And long story short, I started working on a moringa project in my village to help them grow more of it and sell it in a local city, and that would enable them to use it in sort of the community gardens and the health center. And but then I got evacuated, and all of a sudden I was back in the U.S. And I really wanted to find a way to continue what I had started, because I saw such potential. You have one of the most nutritious plants in the world. It grows in some of the hottest, driest places in the world where people often struggle with malnutrition, but there was just nobody was eating it because there wasn't a market for it. And so I came back to the U.S. at the age of 22 and was like, I'm going to create a market for moringa here. And it's been a journey. It's been my passion for the past 5 years, and it's really exciting to be like sitting here in an office. If we have an office now, we have people. There are people in that room who are working on it.
How many employees do you have total here?
So there are 10 of us here. 10, okay. And then we also have a team of about 30 field marketers, so people who are part-time in those key cities. So we have, in Chicago, in New York, and Miami, and California, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, all talking to customers, interacting with them. And then we have about 40 sales reps who are also part-time, work with us and work with other companies. So we have a pretty large field team across the country.
So the name Kuli is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I think you answer the question I was going to ask you, like, where did the name Kuli came from? But I think you said there was a fruit or a nut.
It's a snack. It's a snack that a lot of people make in Niger and Nigeria with peanuts, and they make these in Niger. It's mostly like these little peanut balls, and that's what people are mixing moringa in with. So that's how I started eating it.
I see.
And to me, it just epitomized like how do you make this superfood like taste really good in a way that people can easily enjoy, and how do you bring them something that just will give them energy and revitalize them. And so that was all sort of encapsulated in that snack that they gave me.
So can you tell me 3 or 4 benefits of the moringa itself?
So moringa is amazing. I mean, they call it the tree of life in a lot of West Africa, and that's largely because it has so many both nutritional and medicinal benefits. So on the nutritional side, it's a complete plant protein. So for people who aren't eating a lot of meat, or even people who are but want plant protein, it's really good for that. Has all of your essential amino acids. It also is a natural anti-inflammatory, and there's been some studies that have shown that it can help reduce inflammation even more than turmeric. And we know that inflammation is aggravates all sorts of chronic diseases, from diabetes to heart disease, and so it's really important for that. And then last but not least, it's really rich in a bunch of different vitamins and minerals. So it's kind of like a multivitamin in a tree.
So what kind of impact you can say your business is making around the world? I mean, here or in Africa, you can share with us.
So that's why I'm here. Because I think we're making a positive impact, and I would say that's why everyone on our team is here as well. So we really focus on sourcing our moringa in the most sustainable and impactful way that we can. So we partner with small farmers all over the world now. We've actually, we're a lot in West Africa, but also sourcing some from East Africa, from Uganda, a bit from South America. And really partnering with them, helping them scale up their operations. About half of them, I would say, are already growing moringa. Half of them, aren't growing it yet, but they want to. But for the majority of them, they have no idea how to access international markets. And as you probably know, like the price you can get per kilo when you're selling on the streets of Niger is very different than the price you can get when you're selling to an international market, to the US. So we're generally paying more for their moringa than any other crop that they can sell. And moringa is generally the easiest crop that they can grow. It requires little water, grows year round, and we provide a guaranteed purchase. So we tell them, if you grow this moringa and it meets all of our specifications, we will buy it. And that stability alone is so important for smallholder farmers.
That's cool. So you have many products. You have the superfood, you have the shots.
We do. Got a whole lot of products.
So I know we don't have time to describe all of them, but which one is your most favorite that you can tell me right now?
I'm a big fan of our pure moringa. Is our just original. So that's these guys. We've got them in a pouch. We've got them in these packets. It's just a really convenient way to get your greens. Is that the same one
over there too, or no? It's
that's just a bigger guy. And so I add it every morning into my oatmeal. Mix it in with a little bit of almond butter.
I love oatmeal too. I'm like. So you love rice, I love rice, I love oatmeal, I love oatmeal.
We've got a connection here. And so it's a really great way to get your greens. For me to get, iron and protein or some things I look for, this is a great way to go.
So you say you can put like on your smoothie, you can put like an oatmeal. What else can you add it to?
I really love guacamole.
Okay.
It's really good. I often tell people that moringa tastes good with other things that your mind already thinks of as being green. So it does well in guacamole, it does well in pesto, it does well in things that your mind sort of just expects to have sort of a green flavor. It has kind of a green, earthy flavor similar to matcha.
I see.
So, I love it. A lot of people really love it. And then I would just say briefly, my second favorite product is actually our new smoothie mix. So when I don't have time to make oatmeal, or if I need just afternoon pick me up, it's protein, it's fair trade chocolate, it's delicious.
So is that all the stuff mixed in it already?
All mixed already.
Okay.
So it's like an instant green smoothie.
Okay. And then that flavor is chocolate flavor. All of them are chocolate.
Yeah, this chocolate, vanilla, and natural green.
And natural
so we've got 3 different flavors.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it. So you have something big coming out. You guys working on a campaign to bring more funds in.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what is entitled to and what is the fund for?
Yeah, so we are opening up our Series B investment round in the fall, and we've grown a lot over the past few years. So we've been on the market for almost 5 years now.
Okay.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And our goal is to really, now that we've proven that moringa can work both in the natural channel, so in the Whole Foods of the world, but also work in Costco and Safeway and other places, but you might not expect it to do well. We've actually seen that it's done really well. Now we want to go deeper, and we really want to expand, and we really want to own the market. We're also starting to see competition, which in my mind is not a bad thing. It proves that this is a market.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that we're ahead of our competition, and that we really own the market, and that we really set the standard for how moringa should be grown, that it needs to be grown sustainably, needs to be grown in a way that benefits the communities where it's sourced. So we're excited, now that we've kind of figured out the roadmap to add a little bit of fuel to that flame and really be able to take off even more.
That's amazing. So what advice, tip can you have for women entrepreneurs? Because I think, sometimes can be a challenge for women being an entrepreneurship field. So you have been paving the road, doing some amazing stuff. So that's 2 questions for women entrepreneurs and for social entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So for women entrepreneurs specifically, I think one of the things I think about is how being a woman entrepreneur is an asset. Because I think so much of the time we're told if you're a woman, fundraising is going to be so much harder, you're going to be discriminated against, people aren't going to take you seriously, and that's true. That does happen, and that is hard. But I also think being a woman entrepreneur, there's a lot of benefits. I find that I tend to get more press. We are rare.
Okay.
Because I think that people like to write about different types of companies and different types of entrepreneurs, and if you're just seeing male white men in their hoodies starting tech companies, there's only so many times you can write that story.
Yes.
So I actually think this applies to some extent to social entrepreneurs as well, really telling your story and telling that in a bigger way, and not being afraid to speak up for the issues that you care about. So for me, I'm a big believer in the Me Too movement and that empowerment that it has given so many women. And for them to really, voice some of the challenges that they've seen. And one of the things I did almost exactly a year ago was I had a New York Times reporter who reached out to me and said, she had talked with some of our investors and had known that I had experienced, some discrimination while fundraising. And she said, I really need women to go on the record and say this publicly so that people know these aren't just isolated incidents, that this is happening. And at the time I was nervous, is this going to affect our next round of financing? Is this going to affect our business? But in my mind, it's the right thing to do, and that's how I want to live my life. It's like, is this the right thing to do? Is this setting a good example of how I would want other people to live as well? And so went on the record and found it was just an amazing response. It made like the New York Times most emailed list, and I had just like hundreds of women reaching out to me, like saying, you know, thank you for sharing your story, and then sharing their story with me. So that, I think, you know, I guess telling your story would maybe be the piece of advice. And I think for, you know, social entrepreneurs, sort of a related piece of advice is really thinking about how you can create win-win partnerships with other organizations.
Okay.
So we, you know, partnered with the Clinton Foundation, which I think you know, you might look at us and be like, why would the Clinton Foundation want to work with a tiny little startup? But we were doing something that, you know, they didn't know how to do in terms of building a moringa supply chain in Haiti, and like being able to really then guarantee purchase and launch a new product made with Haitian moringa. We also received some investment from Kellogg, and I think a lot of people at that too were like, Kellogg, like the makers of, you know, Frosted Flakes, like what do they want with a moringa company? But what we found is that we're unique, we're different, we're not just, you know, doing the same path that everybody else is doing. And I think that's what makes social entrepreneurs so like special, and that's what makes other people interested in partnering with them.
That's awesome. If Lisa Keres has the power to make one positive change in the world right now, what would that be?
I would love to end malnutrition. I think that, you know, it's a lofty goal, but if I could wave my hand, I just think that, you know, in the 21st century, like there should not be anyone in this world who does not have nourishing food. And when you look at the stats on like stunted growth and sort of, you know, stunted abilities from early childhood malnutrition, I think it's just, it's pathetic as a society that we still have this challenge. And I would like for, you know, when I have kids, for them to grow up and read about malnutrition in history books is something that we used to have.
So if you were to be like an animal, what animal would you be? Why?
Yeah, you know, I had this older woman actually tell me once that I was a gazelle, which I don't agree with, because I don't want to get eaten by the lion. I was like, I'm the lion. I am definitely not the gazelle. But I think in terms of kind of how I like to run a lot. I like to sort of like, I like to be in a herd. I like people around me. Like I'm very much a people person. I was like, okay, I kind of get it.
You can take that.
As long as I don't get eaten by a lion, then I'm good.
Wow, that's awesome. What would be your last advice tip to my audience?
Yeah. You know, I think one of the things when I talk to a lot of early stage social entrepreneurs is so often they're very focused on fundraising and like, oh, if I can just raise, you know, $100,000, then I can launch my business and do all these things. And I get that. It's you know, it's fundraising is hard and it's important. But one of the things that I found, you know, in coming out of the Peace Corps with like zero money, and is it if you can kind of move the ball down the road far enough just by being super scrappy. So for us, we sold products in farmers markets. That was how we did consumer research. We made them by hand in a commercial kitchen. We spent, you know, all day selling it. Like it was a lot of work.
I imagine.
But it got us to the point where then, you know, Whole Foods saw us at one of the farmers markets and they said, oh wow, you know, you're selling, this is cool. Maybe we'll bring you into a couple stores. When they brought us into a couple stores, then I was like, okay, now I can quit my day job. Now I can do this full time. Now my job becomes, you know, selling it in everywhere. But I think just approaching it step by step and figuring out what you can do before you raise capital to validate your idea would be my biggest piece of advice.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.